Well, for more on the Zika virus, now I'm joined by Dr. Joel Selenicchio. He's the CEO and co-founder of Magpie, a leading provider of cloud-based mobile collection and communication applications. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So we were just listening to our report there from Brazil. We know that Colombia is now second to Brazil with over 31,000 cases of the Zika virus, 5,000 of them in pregnant women. How alarming is this to you?
Well, I think everyone's alarmed. I think the World Health Organization, for example, which was somewhat stung by its perceived slow response to Ebola, is really trying to move into action much faster. And I know that CDC is also moving in that, and of course the Brazilian Ministry of Health. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that unlike with Ebola, where we knew a lot about the virus, here we don't really know what's happening. We're not even certain if there is a link between microcephaly and Zika. And of course, people are working around the clock to find out.
For people living in these Latin American countries, I mean, you can do what you can to make sure you don't have standing water where they breed. They're going door to door, passing out leaflets, but
Right.
How much good will that really do? I mean, to fight these tiny insects?
Well, I mean, that will do a world of good. I mean, that's how we control these same insects. And of course, we also have, screens on the windows and things like that. But yeah, this is the way that they reduced dramatically dengue fever earlier, 50 to 75 years ago. That was with the same exact approach. And I think because they've let down their guard in the past, that particular kind of mosquito has now flourished and apparently is also transmitting Zika. But these are the measures that are quite well known and quite effective. But it's going to take, in a country the size of Brazil, it's going to take an enormous amount of effort to put these into effect across the country.
What lessons did we learn from the Ebola epidemic? You were on numerous times talking about that.
Right. Well, again, this is quite different from Ebola. With Ebola, the disease and the virus had been studied for, decades. So we knew a lot about how Ebola was transmitted. We knew a lot about the effects of the virus. Of course, we learned a lot during the course of the epidemic. With the case of Zika, this is something that, although it's existed, and I mean, I think it was first identified in the 50s or sometime around then, no one paid too much attention to it because it mostly caused what was considered to be a pretty mild disease. I think the thing that has people very alarmed now is this potential connection with microcephaly. But even that, as I said, is not certain. There's some suspicion that in the case, in an epidemic a few years back in French Polynesia, a Zika epidemic, that there may have been microcephaly cases that were linked. Obviously, that's the suspicion in Brazil. Colombia, with, as you said, thousands of pregnant women with Zika, has not yet reported an increase in the cases of microcephaly. So it's still not certain. I think people want to act with an abundance of caution, obviously when a question of birth defects is on the table.
In the United States, I believe there's been one reported case so far, if I'm not mistaken. What should people know and be aware of in the U.S. regarding the disease?
Well, of course, because we have this particular type of mosquito that transmits this, and particularly in the southern states, we will undoubtedly get cases of Zika. Right now, I think we're limited to cases that have been transmitted from someone who traveled to an area where there's that epidemic. So someone comes back, they've got Zika in the bloodstream, a mosquito picks it up and bites someone else. I think we've also had a case of sexually transmitted Zika, again from someone who acquired the virus elsewhere outside the country. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get local cases in the United States. I think the thing that we have to be careful of is for pregnant women. I mean, that's really, really the dominant concern. And CDC has issued guidelines for if you are pregnant and have traveled to a Zika epidemic area and have come back, symptomatic or not symptomatic, what should you do? I think certainly at a bare minimum, there's no question that women who are pregnant or think they might be pregnant are going to find out, and they're going to go to their obstetrician, and they're going to make sure that they get the care that they need. But CDC, as I said, right now is trying to outline what are the guidelines of what we need to do. Let's say for a woman who comes back asymptomatic, doesn't know if she had Zika, but she was in Brazil for 2 weeks. All those guidelines are being basically made and remade as we speak.
All righty. Dr. Joel Selenicchio, thank you for the very important information. We appreciate it.